Good evening. Welcome to Elyria City Council for February 6, 2023. At this time, we'll do a moment of reflective silence by the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Corbin, would you please lead us in the pledge? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mr. Corbin. At this time, I'd ask if you could please switch your phones to either the off or silent mode during the council meeting. It'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you. Mr. Clerk, I have roll call, please.
Yes, sir. Mr. Callahan.
Here.
Mr. Sarah.
Here.
Mr. Oswald.
Here.
Mr. Corbin.
Here.
Mrs. Mitchell.
Here.
Mr. Tollett.
Here.
Mr. Lippian.
Here.
Mrs. Davis.
Here.
Mrs. Simmons.
Here.
Mr. Schneider.
Here.
Mr. Stewart.
Here.
All present.
Public hearings.
There are none.
Can I get approval of the minutes?
Moved.
Moved by Mr. Sarah, second by Mr. Schneider. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Remarks and reports from city officials. Mayor Whitfield.
Thank you, Council President. Good evening, City Council members. Good evening, residents. Just a couple updates I want to share. First, I want to thank the folks who were just in the meeting here at 6 o'clock here upstairs on the comprehensive land use plan. Again, I want to encourage our residents to take that survey at ourelyria.com. It's really going to be the master plan that helps shape the future of the city. It allows you as residents to have a voice in where things are located in the city, and it's just a way to make your voice heard in terms of the future. So it's been long overdue, and just really want to encourage folks to take advantage of that. Secondly, just a couple updates and congratulations to the county and the Port Authority for the securing of Midway Mall. We had a good meeting last week. We've been meeting with the county, have a meeting again with them this week. Feel really good about where we are in terms of our discussions and collaboration. And speaking of collaboration, on the 14th, next week, is actually the day Elyria became the county seat on Valentine's Day. So we're working on some sort of presentation. I'm not giving them, chocolate hearts and stuff, but I'm gonna figure out something to present to the county to recognize that memorable day that Elyria became the county seat, thanks to Heman Ely getting on that horseback and not driving, slapping or whatever you do on his way to Columbus. So definitely want to acknowledge that day. And then lastly, we have some folks we want to recognize here in the audience, and we have some proclamations we want to present to Laura and Megan. And this is really in response to their heroic efforts that happened at the Elyria basketball game. And again, I think it was so serendipitous that, nationally they were having this conversation around the Buffalo Bills football player and the heroics of our first responders. And then here locally, we had our own heroes acting as first responders to help save someone's life. So I'm going to ask Chief Pernesti to give some commentary on this as well, and then I'd like to present them if it's okay with this proclamation.
Yes.
So Chief Pernesti.
Chief Pernesti, thank you.
Good evening. So, as the mayor stated on January 6th, Mr. George Jackson was officiating high school basketball game. It was halftime. They were getting ready to come out for the second half, and he did not feel well, and he went down into cardiac arrest in the hallway. And because of the efforts of many, but most importantly, Elyria High athletic trainer Laura Reese and, Megan Edwards, came to his aid, and he saved his life. And Mr. Jackson is here. Please, Stuart, come on, don't be bashful. It's so important, and this is recording and going out to the city and you know, it's public. It's so important to, when you go into a public building, you always want to be aware, obviously, of your surroundings. But you know what? There's that white box out there that everybody passes. And, you know, someday you might be the one to have to grab that. And they're AEDs, automated external defibrillators. Anybody can use them. And not only did they use it to save his life, but Miss Edwards, who's a registered nurse, she was in the stands. This is how great this is, and I'll be quiet and give them the recognition here in a second. But this is what's good about America and about what we stand for. She's in the stands watching her son. Mr. Jackson goes down in a hallway unknown to anybody. She sees somebody grab the AED off the wall. She follows them because she knew something was up. She's a hero. Where's Laura? Come on. Yeah, you get one too.
Come on, get over there.
We're appreciative of your heroic efforts and, you know, of a miracle, you know. Chief Burnett, we mentioned, this is what America's about, what Illyria is about, stepping in, supporting one another. Heroic efforts and, looking good. I got some proclamations for you.
There were two other individuals. There was a lot of individuals. But there was two more, and they wear that uniform. Sergeant Rick Buckway and Patrolman Joe Figula. They were working security. They assisted, and I put them in for a life-saving merit that Elyria Police have. So I did not want to forget our brothers on the other side of Broad Street there. They performed outstanding. So, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, so the Chief did send me that video and, you know, wanted to have this proclamation to those individuals. I've seen the video. It's an amazing team effort to go over and through, and you are true heroes. This is the second time we've brought this up to this council in regards to a life-saving measure over and through there. So just an incredible feat and reaction, and it's greatly appreciated. Very good. Mayor, in regards to I wonder if you can comment on, can you give us the status of the renewal of where things are at with the committee or where things are going with that, of an update?
Yeah, so we're still waiting on our issue number, and I was counting the issues, and it's looking interesting. I'm hoping that it's not issue 6, just so it doesn't confuse people. But we're waiting on our issue number, and I'm working with the finance director to get some of the records from the previous campaigns. Once we secure those and our issue number, we'll have a big convening. One of the ideas we're working on that we'd like to do is a celebrity basketball game, a friendly basketball game with police, fire, safety service, and community members as a way to celebrate one another, raise awareness, as well as raise some friends to go towards getting this levy renewed. For the residents' sake, this 0.5% has been renewed since 1983. It is a general fund renewal issue that primarily helps fund our police and fire. And so we're hoping that our residents will support the renewal. And we wanted to also see what else we'd be competing with in terms of attention going on. So we'll make sure we make that public once we get that issue number, and when that public meeting will be to start organizing folks to win.
Okay. As far as, generally, I think you and I spoke about it in the previous conversations as far as community leaders. I know we're all community leaders here, but is there a path there of, outside of council and administration leading this? Has that been determined yet, or?
You mean in terms of engaging?
Co-chairs to kind of run the campaign other than?
We, of course, asked legendary Jack Baird to be involved as a chair, so he's accepted. And we're cultivating a couple more. If you're out there and a resident and really want to help be involved on this steering part of this levy renewal, again, this is important for our public safety as well as, the future of the city. Without this levy, we'll be in a tough boat, but with it, we can keep moving forward. We can keep the momentum that we have going. So if you're interested, please let me know, and we'll make sure to get you engaged.
Thank you, Mayor. Any questions for the mayor? Mr. Lippian?
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you. Mayor, a few months back, myself, Councilman Corbin, and Councilwoman Simmons made some inquiries into uses for our remaining ARPA funds from the administration. Has there been any movement on the input we provided in Ward 1? For example, residents have given the feedback we'd like LED stop signs. Do we have any word on when these would be implemented, sir?
Yep. Through you, Council President, Councilman Lippian. So we've had a meeting, several meetings with the Finance Department. We have another meeting wrapping up this week where at the upcoming committee meeting, upcoming finance, we hope to present general fund recommendations, ARPA recommendations, as well as there's some tightening up of some issue 6 things we want to present to you all as well at the upcoming finance meeting. So it should be addressing that.
Mr. Lippian?
Through you, Mr. President. One more question, Mr. Mayor. What's the status on the sister cities?
Yes, so the sister city piece, we reached out to a group, and through you, Council President. So this is in regards to this conversation is taking kind of two lives. One is around the Ukrainian piece and trying to make sure the city was being supportive of Ukrainian refugees that are coming to the city. But secondly, it was about creating a kind of a welcoming city where immigrants felt welcome in the city of Elyria. So we've reached out to Welcome America, which is an entity that helps cities establish sister cities and help them become more immigrant friendly. So I'm hoping that within the next couple months we can have something to present publicly, but we're still working out with that organization what that could look like.
That is very exciting, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your conscientiousness.
No doubt.
Any other questions for the mayor? Thank you, Mayor. Safety Service Director Lundy.
Yeah, thank you, President Stewart. Pleased to report that since we last met, our Streets Department has responded well to a few snow events, not big snow events, but snow events nonetheless. Some of them actually popped up suddenly, but our streets team responded effectively. Engineering will be able to update you a little bit more on a lot of the infrastructure work that's being done in that St. Jude area bordered by Gulf Road, Poplar, Abbey, and Cleveland Street. The engineering department team, I will tell you, has been on the scene checking out how best to keep traffic moving in the area. Also, Larry Showalter, the communications team, has also made adjustments to signalization to reduce backups as best as possible. We've received also some very positive emails from leaders at the schools thanking the team for effectively communicating the changes that are underway so that they can get the students in and out of the area. We're also efforting a meeting with Congresswoman Marcy Kaptur's office, and while she's no longer a congressional representative in our area, we want to make sure that the Congresswoman's office, that we connect with her, because she was very instrumental in passing the startup of the Great Lakes Authority. We've all heard of the Tennessee Valley Authority, but the Great Lakes did not have a governmental representation or bureau to that effect. Now one is established. That means that federal dollars will soon be available to those of us in the Great Lakes region. Our special interest, of course, is learning about federal funding mechanisms that may be available to assist our city with water infrastructure, and we will keep you updated. And that completes my report, Council President.
Any questions for Mr. Lundy? All right, thank you. Finance Director Plesky.
Thank you, Mr. President. As you all know, the city has a series of long-term obligation bonds that are on the books. Some of those bonds are rated by S&P Global, Standard & Poor's. Others are rated by Moody's Investor Services. So recently, Moody's reached out to me and wanted to do a review of our bond rating. So I prepared a little presentation, had about a 45-minute phone meeting with a representative from Moody's. He took the information to the review board and found out last week that the outcome of that meeting is that Moody's has upgraded the city's bond rating from an A2 to an A1. So,
Thank you, very good.
thank you.
Well, that's a testament to you, Mr. Plesky, and Mr. Farrell and your staff. You do an incredible job. That's why you have all those plaques on your wall as you walk into your office. We're very fortunate to have you in our corner. We appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Farrell as well. Any questions for Mr. Plesky? Okay, Law Director Deary.
Thank you, Mr. President. Matthew Kishman just began earlier this morning as a prosecutor over across the street at Illyria Muni Court. Other than that, I would request that council go into executive session to discuss personal matters, specifically a potential separation agreement to avoid imminent litigation. Thank you.
Any questions for Law Director Deary? Good. Leary Police Department, Chief Pelko.
Good evening. I just want to inform you that today we had a busy day at the police department. When I was getting into my police cruiser, we got a call of a male that was shot in the head over on West River. Officers responded there. The male was still alive, ended up getting life flight and is in critical condition, but we did arrest his wife for that incident. So we were investigating that. And then earlier this afternoon, we had a bank robbery on Broad Street at Lormet. As I was coming in today, my detectives were still actively pursuing leads and stuff on that is going on in the city. So that's the bad news. The good news is one of our grants, the $2.7 million grant, that money was approved. We're still working with the grant people to try and get some details figured out with that. But I just want to let you know that the money was approved and we're trying to work out the details to get that situation settled. But with that, I'm open to any questions for you.
Any questions for Mr. Oswald?
Through you, Mr. President. And Chief, I got an email Sunday morning with a video of an incident that happened on Canterbury and Whitman. And evidently it was late at night and he had his camera facing where the police come and everything. And so I was looking at the video, very impressive police department. And all this guy said was that they did like a picture perfect job when they were out there, how they handled the situation. And he says, man, kudos to our police department. So I just wanted to pass that on from the resident that was right there watching what you guys were doing. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very good. Any other questions for Chief Pelko? Mr. Lippian?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. President. Chief, thank you for working with the residents of the First Ward to implement our No Need for Speed initiative. Now that you've compiled a list of driveways based on residents who reached out to my office via various means, telephonic, electronic, social media, and so forth, when do you plan to begin implementing this initiative, and when can I shadow the EPD to see it in action?
We already started implementing it. It's a spreadsheet in our computer system. All the officers have access to know where they can sit. And if they have time, they should be sitting in the driveways as we speak.
Excuse me. Any other questions for Ms. Mitchell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. President, through you. Not a question as much as a comment. While I think it's commendable that your police officers are sitting in the first ward, there are other areas in this city, and you and I have had this discussion multiple times, that need attention as well. They are blowing through stop signs. They are blowing through stop lights. I mean, literally, if you don't stop and look before you go, you will get ran over. So yes, it's great that they're sitting in the first ward, but please don't forget about the rest of the city. Thank you.
We won't forget about you, and if you want to add your residents I'll add it on the spreadsheet, and we'll include everybody in the city of Elyria. So
I won't let you forget me.
Any other questions for Chief Pelko? Mr. Lippian?
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you, if you'd permit me, he's been most responsive. Any other ward council members that can compile a list together with residents' permissions and consent, I know the chief would be more than happy to implement that as well, I'm sure. So,
if you just want to email me an address, a name, a phone number, or email, I'll throw it on the spreadsheet, and then all the officers will have access to those houses that want to help us out.
Ms. Mitchell?
Thank you, Mr. President, through you. If you guys just sit on Gateway Boulevard, I say that all the time, just sit on Gateway Boulevard. Sit on Bullock Parkway. They blow through there all the time. Sit on Lake Avenue. They blow through those stop lights all the time. We shouldn't have to tell you. Thank you.
Okay. I think the chief gets the message. Thank you.
Loud and clear. Give me some more people.
Thank you, Chief. All right. Elyria Fire Department, Chief Pernesti. Any questions for the chief? All right. Assistant Safety Service Director, Mr. Williams.
Through you, Mr. President, and good evening, Council. I'd just like to bring back an item from the memory, and we will present this back to the Community Development and Finance Committee at the next committee meeting. Back in May, we introduced a project, the Black Elyria Project, with Media Made Perfect. It's a project that chronologizes a documentary on the contributions of African Americans in the city of Elyria. And so we'll bring that back to the committee for some more discussion and decision on potential funding. It was I think you guys remember that project. Tara Connolly was a presenter who is now on the faculty of Kent State University. And hopefully she'll be back also to share in that presentation. And we just kind of want to bring that back up for discussion and with some more details on how we propose funding that and get some more council input as we move forward with that. So we'll have some information to you prior to the meeting so you can kind of refresh your memory on that project. Any questions?
Mr. Williams? All right, thank you, Mr. Williams. Assistant Safety Service Director Calvert. Human Resources Director, Ms. Yousefi. Superintendent of Wastewater, Mr. Corzan. Let's see, is Ashley Scott here? All right, how about everyone's favorite this time of year, City Engineer, Ms. McKillop. I think we're the epitome of the Orange Barrel City.
Good evening. Through you, Mr. President. Just a brief update. We are out there making progress. Today, the intersection of Hawthorne and Poplar will be starting today. It'll be closed for the big sewer project. Residents north of Poplar may need to use Sycamore Street to get around the closure. It's amazing when we have these issues come up where, people can't travel the way they usually do. We have residents that are calling us to ask how they can get around because they really haven't had a chance to drive through their neighborhood, or they don't know what streets are in their neighborhood or which streets are connected to what streets. So it's a great opportunity for residents to travel your neighborhood and, get a view, meet some new neighbors, and maybe improve communication amongst the members of the neighborhood and the groups in that area. Jumping over to Gulf Road, we are still excavating on Gulf between Ohio and Cleveland Street. The contractor is encountering rock, so excavation's taking a little bit longer than they anticipated, but they are still making progress and they are managing the rock excavation well. Do want to remind the public that both Ohio and Hamilton Streets are closed at Gulf Road. And Gulf Road is open to southbound traffic only, starting at Lafayette to Cleveland Street. Now, Harwood is the detour of choice for many residents that are heading north and can't travel Gulf Road, so they're traveling Harwood. So we do ask that residents, that drivers respect the residents and their neighborhood and drive the speed limit in that area. We will be putting up the radar speed signs on Harwood as soon as the weather permits. This time of year, the signs don't function very well because of the cold and the batteries and the lack of sunlight do not guard well with these pieces of equipment. We will be placing signs at certain locations with business names and arrows to help their patrons know which entrance to use to get into a business. I think with the number of barrels and cones that are out there, I think sometimes when you're traveling down the road, it's hard to distinguish exactly where is there an entrance to get into a business and what's blocked, what's not blocked. So we will be getting signs put up in the near future with the assistance of our street department and sign shop. And Cleveland Street. Starting tomorrow, Longford and Cleveland Street intersection will be closed starting around noon time. The intersection there at Marseilles and Cleveland Street will be open to traffic. This project is progressing very quickly. I mean, we're getting 200 to 300 feet a day installed. So whereas you may find one intersection is closed one day, 2 days later, it's the next intersection. So for Cleveland Street, that one's a project where it changes almost daily as far as traffic control. Other than that, everything's PG. I'll take any questions.
Any questions for Ms. McKillips? Ms. Mitchell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, not a question, but just a reminder to all of my colleagues, if you have not gotten your 2023 streets in, get them in as soon as possible. We're having a start discussion on Wednesday. If you have not done your ride along with the engineering department, please get that scheduled and get that done. And just a reminder, you don't use your money, I will take it. Thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. McKillips? Thank you, Ms. McKillips. I think that takes care of everybody, as long as I can see. President's referrals and remonstrances. Do I have that? Item number 1, community development. Item number 2, community development. Item number 3, Community Development Finance. Item number 4, Community Development Finance. Item number 5, Finance. Item number 6, Finance. Item number 7, Finance. Item number 8, Finance and Utilities. Item number 9, Finance and Utilities. Item number 10, Finance and Utilities. Item number 11, Finance and Utilities. Item number 12, Finance and Utilities. Item number 13, Utilities. Items 14 through 15 received and placed on file in the clerk's office. Petitions and remonstrances from the lobby.
We have one, Janine Donaldson, 1515 South Lakeview Boulevard, representing the YWCA, subject Juneteenth fireworks.
Welcome, Ms. Donaldson. Please state your name and address for the record.
Janine Donaldson, 1515 South Lakeview Boulevard, Lorraine, Ohio, doing business for the Elyria YWCA, 318 West Avenue, Elyria, Ohio. Thank you for having me, Mr. Chair. A few weeks ago, it came before the Council, I think, Utilities Committee to review the ordinance regarding the usage of fireworks in the city of Elyria. And it was noticed in the newspaper that council had voted to make exceptions only on July 4th, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, and for a limited amount of time. I wrote each one of you individually because I wanted to give you the opportunity to explain to you why we view Juneteenth as an exception. As you know, Juneteenth is now a federal holiday, but the reason it became a federal holiday is because of the enslaved people during the Civil War were granted their freedom through the Emancipation Proclamation, which allowed the Southern slaves to become Union soldiers, or contraband, I think is what they're called. But that contributed about 300,000 persons to the Army. And at that point in time, the war was not going in the favor of the Union. So the addition of those soldiers made that possible. And so when we read in the newspaper that Juneteenth was being compared to Cinco de Mayo, which is a Mexican holiday celebrating a Mexican war, and when we compared it to the Chinese New Year's, we have Chinese Americans in this country, and we're very proud of those Chinese Americans, but Chinese New Year's is a Chinese celebration. We have the opportunity to celebrate and honor a uniquely American holiday. So that's why I wanted to come here and fight for the right to have fireworks on that day. Now, I'm not saying that individuals should have the right to fire off fireworks on that day. I'm hoping because, well, it's a new celebration, so we really don't know how we want to celebrate it, but I envision that someday with Elyria that we would have a celebration where we all celebrate Juneteenth. It's not just a black holiday, it's America's holiday, and that maybe we would have a large festival out at Cascade Park. And at that point, the city of Elyria would want to fire off some fireworks like at an Indians game. Guardians game. How inappropriate. So that is my charge here today. But I also wanted to congratulate you, because when I was reading that newspaper article, I saw that there was some real debate, and it was the kind of debate that I came here in February of last year to tell you what was going on with the YWCA and our relationship in terms of City Council passing racism as a public health crisis. When you all debated the fireworks issue, you did look at it in terms of inclusivity. So I applaud us for that. I'm not sure if that would have gone on before, so that is something that I applaud you for. So before I leave, I just want to urge again, I believe you're going to be voting on it tonight, and I would hope that the vote would allow for Juneteenth to have a special way that but the city of Elyria could celebrate with fireworks.
Thank you, Ms. Donaldson. I know that you and I spoke earlier on a couple of different occasions, and I'm going to defer to the law director in regards to what you and I spoke about earlier today. Law Director Deary, just to kind of confirm our conversation. You know, we had talked about during the committee that the committee at that time voted to have it on the 4th of July and on New Year's Day, as you spoke, into the early hours of New Year's Eve and then New Year's Day. And then we said that at a later date that we could, but it's before us tonight, amend that ordinance to have Juneteenth added to that. And then it was brought to my attention right before the council meeting with Law Director Deary that would be if Juneteenth, if we wanted to do something that we could have through a fireworks display through the city, they would, you know, go through for that proper permitting for that. So that would, you know, if we wanted to add it at a later date, we could amend it, but that's a different setup as far as with the state. We could, if they wanted to do it on the 19th. So Law Director Deary, just from that conversation that you and I had earlier, can you expound upon that?
So through you, Mr. President, this proposed ordinance specifically applies to individual residents. So if I myself, Amanda Deary, I would not be permitted to shoot off fireworks on Juneteenth. This does not pertain to licensed exhibitors of fireworks, much like the company that is hired by the city who shoots these off in West Park. Or I would surmise if a commercial fireworks company were to be hired by the city to shoot off fireworks on Juneteenth somewhere. Or if the Apple Festival Committee wished to hire someone commercially. They need to get their proper permitting and things like that. The state revised code provision operates in much the same way, although it sets out quite a few additional dates throughout the annual calendar. Our ordinance as it is proposed specifically says that it does not apply to licensed manufacturers, does not apply to licensed wholesalers as defined by the Ohio Revised Code. And it also does not apply to licensed exhibitors of fireworks. So this applies to Amanda Deary going to Phantom Fireworks out in Sandusky, going to buy a bunch of fireworks, wants to shoot them off tonight on February 6th or any other day that's not delineated in this ordinance, if it should pass 549-10F. Does that make sense?
So Amanda, excuse me. Am I happy, Law Director Deary?
Either's fine. I knew you meant me.
Are we able to have fireworks on Juneteenth should the city determine they want to do that?
I guess my question back to you, and this is why people don't like lawyers, because you always answer a question with a question, but is when you say, are you able, I guess, and the main thing is, who is you? Is you the city of Elyria? If the city of Elyria wanted to hire a company to have fireworks, yes. I would argue yes.
Yes.
I legally advise the city, but if they were to do that much in the same manner as they do on the 4th of July, I would say yes.
And that is what council would be voting on tonight.
All right, yeah.
I'm done. Thank you.
Council Pres, if you don't mind, because I think there was a little bit of if you don't mind me. Sure. Thank you. So I think one thing I want to let folks know, the Juneteenth celebration for the city of Elyria is actually scheduled for June 17th, the Saturday before Juneteenth, which is on a Monday. So that's just an FYI, just a note. The second piece, though, what I think Mrs. Donaldson was alluding to, that I also found somewhat concerning, was that we were equating this uniquely new American holiday with holidays that aren't uniquely new and American holidays. That we were equating the Chinese New Year. So to me, it was more about the principle of how we feel as a city in regards to this holiday, which then translates into what we do as a city. If we equate this just as another holiday to just add in the load of holidays, then we may not take the exception that this really is something that's special to the country, special to Elyria. And so that's kind of what I heard. And then in terms of this vote, I think one of the pieces that Mrs. Donaldson was advocating for was for this holiday to be treated with the same honor, with the same opportunity as the 4th of July and with the New Year's and New Year's Day, which, you know, for your, you know, you were speaking kind of for yourself about the city doing fireworks, but also we're talking about if residents just want to celebrate, and it's not the city, if people just want to get together as a family and celebrate this holiday, right now, what's being proposed, they would not be able to do that. It would be, the city would be able to, but residents wouldn't have that same liberty. So I want to make sure that that's clear.
Well, that was correct with me, that it wouldn't be individuals. And I have to say that right now, I'm okay with that. I want to see our city come together and celebrate Juneteenth. You know, when I think about the fireworks, I think about, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air. You know, that's America. That's what Juneteenth is.
And again, through you, Councilor, I would just, that's what my point was, like, she may be stating she's okay, but there's others who have expressed they would like it to be treated the same as the other holidays. So thank you.
Ms. Mitchell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I think what the committee tried to do was what the residents asked us to do. Residents complained with PTSD and their dogs and their kids and working nights that the fireworks were disrupted. We were not trying to limit or exclude any group. We were trying to be fair, and I felt that we did that. And again, if this is something that we want to revisit in the future, we can certainly do that as well. But please know, we were not trying to exclude anyone. We were trying to be inclusive, and we had much debate about this and what holidays to include. So I just want to say we were trying to be fair. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mitchell. Mr. Lippian?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. President. And I want to thank Utilities Chairwoman Mitchell for conducting a great debate on that subject. You know, it was handled very well. And I really appreciate every time you come to speak to us, Ms. Donaldson. You know, the wealth of experiences and education that you bring is unending. We've had several times to sit down and speak together about various issues, and I've learned so much from you, and I continue to, and I appreciate that. I did find the argument specious that Juneteenth is on par with Chinese New Year and Cinco de Mayo, and we've covered that, and I respect my colleagues' differences of opinion. But I know that this is a celebration of individual liberty, and I really appreciate that you said it's for all people, because I think about, you know, my great-great-grandfather, John Glass. You know, my name's Andrew Charles Glass, so the name got passed down to me. And John Glass fought in the Union Army. He was a cavalry soldier. And when I think about the individual liberty that's celebrated on Juneteenth, when human beings' liberties and dignity were recognized across the board, that made all humanity better. And that's something that I'd love to celebrate. So I really think it's a unique American holiday. And regardless of what we do with fireworks, I said I would not oppose it if we amended it today. But I would love to celebrate it regardless, and I'm looking forward to that.
And I just appreciate the debate, too. This is going to be ongoing. You'll see me a lot. but the point being that we said we were going to do things differently, particularly in terms of people of color. And this is how it happens. It starts through conversation, debate. You know, in my letter to you all, I wrote it a few weeks ago, but I think what I had put in there is that when African Americans ask that we have our history celebrated, our history, which is American history, celebrated, it is not to say that we diminish the history that we were all raised with in school about the United States. I mean, it is still our history, but it's just something that we don't want to diminish the efforts, the soldiers that fought and died. Quincy Adams Gilmore, general in the Union Army from Lorain, Ohio, graduated from Elyria High School because it was the only high school west of the Alleghenies. He graduated first in his class at West Point, and he was in charge of the arsenal at Fort Sumter. And there is a medal in his name. And he further garrisoned the troops, the colored troops, the 54th Colored Troops that fought in the Civil War. And further was responsible for getting the Emancipation Proclamation out so that the enslaved folks of the South would know they were free. we're celebrating 200 years of Lorain County history. This is incredible history that everyone should be proud of. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Donaldson. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Oswald, I didn't see your hand up.
Yeah, if I could just say something, through you, Mr. President. Ms. Mitchell, she did run a heck of a meeting because there was a lot of discussion on this, and we were getting the information from the residents. They asked us that there's a lot of fireworks being shot off, that it was disrupting a lot of people. So trying to keep a happy medium ground with everybody was not easy to do. And so this is what we come up with, and when it come up that there were some people that were still interested in having Juneteenth, or maybe some other ones, we said, well, at that point, if they want to try to petition to have something where they can openly shoot off fireworks, then they could bring it to council and we could debate it at that time. But the original idea was from the residents that we were having too many fireworks shot off. So I have to agree with Ms. Mitchell. That was how it all started, and we were trying to do the best and make as many people happy, and not to make any one culture feel bad. So I just wanted to say my piece as far as what we did. That was a tough one. You're right. There was a lot of debate on that. So, and that's how it's supposed to work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Oswald.
That's all the petitions from the lobby.
All right, petitions and remarks to council members.
There are none.
Reports of standing and special committees.
There are none.
Resolutions first reading.
There are none.
Resolutions second reading.
There are none.
Resolutions third reading.
There are none.
Ordinances first reading.
Sponsored by Utilities, an ordinance amending the Elyria Codified Ordinances, Chapters 549, Weapons and Explosives, Section 549.10, Fireworks.
Ms. Mitchell?
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed on its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Mr. Lippian. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Yes, okay. Ordinance 2023-15. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to submit an application to the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, FEMA, and accept if offered the FY 2022 Assistance to Firefighters Grant Program for the purchase of a rescue truck for the Elyria Fire Department and declare an emergency.
Mr. Tolet?
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Through you, I'm sorry, Mr. President, and also waive any defect in service.
Yes,
Thank you.
and waiving defect of service.
There was a motion by Mr. Tolet,
Second.
second by Mr. Sarah. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2023-16. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to submit an application to the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, FEMA, and accept, if offered, the FY 2022 Assistance to Firefighters Grant Program jointly with multiple jurisdictions within the county of Lorain for radio equipment and declare an emergency.
Mr. Tolet?
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency and to waive service.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2023-17. An ordinance authorize the finance director to pay unencumbered bills from 2022 and declare an emergency.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency and waive any defect in service.
Second. Motion by Mr. Tolet, second by Mr. Sarah. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2023-18. That's all ordinances first reading.
Ordinance is second reading.
There are none.
Ordinance is third reading.
There are none.
Committee calls.
Community Development requests the law director, safety service director, building inspector, and engineer on Monday, 2/13, 6 p.m. All items referred. Joint CD Finance requests the mayor, law director, finance director, safety service director, and engineer on Monday, 2/13, immediately following the community development meeting. All items referred. Finance requests the mayor, law director, finance director, safety service director, and engineer on Monday, 2/13, immediately following the joint meeting. All items referred. Utility Safety Environment requests the law director, safety service director, and engineer on Wednesday, 2/8, 6 p.m. All items referred. And Strategic Planner requests the mayor, safety service director, finance director, and law director on Tuesday, 2/20, beginning at 7 p.m. All items referred.
Okay, miscellaneous and unfinished business per Mr. Lippman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you, I had occasion during the discharge of my duties as chair of the Lorain County Bicentennial Committee to communicate with the Oberlin Conservatory of Music, in particular with Ms. Sally Takata, the Associate Dean of Artistic Programming and External Relations. And she is keen on the idea of dispatching Oberlin Conservatory musicians to City Hall in solo to play for a brief time before council meetings. This could not only increase attendance to Elyria City Council meetings, but also would be a nice cultured touch, adding music, the universal language, to set the mood in this chamber before each meeting. Imagine a solo cellist playing for 15 or 20 minutes during the time preceding a council meeting. I think this would be a lovely way to partner with a neighboring community and create positive opportunities and connections for the arts in Elyria. What would your mind be, Mr. President, on such an opportunity?
We would welcome that. I would think if you would give that letter to the clerk's office, we could look at it and revisit it and have a conversation about it. Okay, there was a recommendation by the law director, so I need a motion to go into executive session for personnel matters with a possibility of...
Yes, potential action to follow, Mr. President.
So moved. Moved by Mr. Sarah, second by Mr. Schneider. Roll call vote.
Mr. Callahan.
Aye.
Mr. Sarah.
Aye.
Mr. Oswald.
Aye.
Mr. Corbin.
Aye.
Mrs. Mitchell.
Aye.
Mr. Tolet.
Aye.
Mr. Lippian.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Mrs. Simmons.
Aye.
Mr. Schneider.
Aye.
Mr. Stewart.
Aye.
All ayes.
I would ask the public, please step out other than,
Mr. President,
yes.
after we come out of executive session,